If you are waiting for your governments to make the changes, you will be waiting many, many lifetimes.
We have all of these amazing people in places of power that are doing nothing.
Earth is alive, and every step we take must be with love and caution.
And we can together create important global movements.
We the world.
We the world.
We the world.
We the world.
We the world. We the people.
Hello, welcome to 11 Days of Global Unity Summit. My name is Jana Larson, and I am coordinator of the Economic Justice Campaign for We the World, as well as many other things for We the World. Today, I'm excited that we'll be joined by Kurt Kruger and our own Catherine Davis, coordinator of our health campaign. We will be talking about the theme of health today. For the full 11-day summit schedule, to see the recordings and to register for free, go to 11daysofglobalunity.org or go to we.net. Rick Ulvik is the founder of We the World at we.net and the co-creator of 11 Days of Global Unity. Rick can't be here today for health reasons. However, he sends his love and best wishes. 11 Days of Global Unity goes from the anniversary of the tragedy of September 11th to September 21st, the celebration of the International Day of Peace, commemorating our collective journey from fear to hope. To take action with the 11 campaigns for change, Trends Magazine with editor Robert Levine, and all the work of We the World, go to we.net. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Kurt Kruger and Catherine Davis. And I'll share your bios now. Kurt Kruger is a pragmatic futurist with the force, spirit, the focus for living the loving servant life. Author of the best-selling series of works and books, Winning Ways for Living. He has taught on 5 continents for all levels of society and is acclaimed for his useful practices for peak performance in daily life, whether in business, education, or sports. He had taught social studies and physical education for LAUSD for 47 years. He has been a university faculty member in psychology and physical education. His presentations are energetic, multimedia, interactive, and fun. A polymath, his expertise is in futuristic education and actualizing our full abilities for going beyond our beyond for the amelioration of all. And Catherine Davis, our own Catherine Davis, is host and producer of Heart of Mind, radio for the new millennium, heard over WBAI, Pacifica Radio, WBAI.org, 99.5 FM in New York, and the Progressive Radio Network. Catherine has 30 years experience as a Qigong teacher and facilitator of movement, meditation, and energy healing systems. She currently offers ongoing classes at studiomaya.com in Brooklyn. Learn more at qigongonline.net or Catherine.one, spelled out O-N-E. Catherine is the author of the forthcoming book, Harness the Natural Rhythms of Life. Welcome, Kurt and Catherine. And before you all start, I have a burning question. What is a polymath?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. And poly means many.
Yes.
And math is basically all kinds of subjects, any kind of thing that makes life full. And that's why one of the companies that we founded is called Success Systems International, just like this body. This body's a system of all kinds of different systems, the cardiovascular and so on and so forth. Same like the earth. So we learn from biomimicry. We learn from anything and everything because we are that.
Okay.
How's
I
that?
guess I understand. Sounds interesting. Well, I was thinking before when I was looking over some of your work when I was getting ready and preparing, I was going to say, well, Kurt basically does everything. So
Oh, no. No math. No math.
no math. That's how I am. No math, no math.
Thank you.
And Catherine, it's amazing. It's pretty self-explanatory. How long have you been with as a radio host and all that you've done over the years?
Well, I guess I would say that I started, rebooted my life when I was in my 30s. And that's when I started my adventures towards health. And that involved first volunteering at the radio station and ultimately becoming a producer and host.
You started as a volunteer?
Yeah. And,
Wow.
and I also started around the same time looking for alternative and complementary healing practices because I had grown up with a mother who had multiple sclerosis.
Mhm.
And back then there was no real help. And so I lost faith in conventional answers because I didn't have many. And I started my path about the same time with health and got involved with energy healing as well. And, nutrition and herbs. And so maybe I'm a polymath too, because I don't have any degrees in any of that stuff. I've only been studying and working with it for 35 years. So
Only.
That's
So
why-
you're a Renaissance woman, really.
maybe.
So you're very much like me. I have a PhD. I play happily daily. Everybody else, I've never earned a PhD.
You know what else I've heard about what PhD stands for? Piled higher and deeper.
Oh yeah, well that's the trouble with our so-called education system. Our education system is indoctrination system into what people think is science, but science is only the next best guess about what life is really about.
Exactly.
And
Because the world was flat for how many centuries?
sad part though is that scientists nowadays have forgotten that. And they have no more curiosity and exploration and willing to look at the possibilities. And that's a shame.
Well, the physicists are in a way, the closest kind of thing in regard to, like David Bohm's work and, Einstein's work and so on are thinking outside the box. Well, you have to if you're going to get out of the box. And there's no box in nature. Have you ever seen a box in nature? Yeah, so here we are. We get to grow just like Mother Nature, and because we are nature.
Well, and I have a fairly optimistic view about all of that. I think there is a lot of curiosity, and because just think about when I was in high school and going to college the first time when I couldn't decide what I wanted to be. Anyway, back to that chemistry and math. We didn't even have calculators. You had to have a rich roommate or know someone that was rich. And my family was still watching black and white TV. And my dad was an aerospace engineer working on all the space exploration. And since then, when I think about all that's happened over the last few years, or what my mother, who's 90, has seen in her lifetime, and all the things that will come up and be discovered, that we'll look back and think of these as being the dark ages, because of what's going to come. For example, my niece is recently graduated in molecular biology and who knows what else from University of Colorado at Boulder. And now she's going to be working for, really? Yeah?
Yeah, 1969. I should have graduated in 68 like my identical twin from SC, but I graduated in 69 because I swam, skied, and I skied, swam, and graduated. Truly.
Well, growing up in Boulder, I probably ran into you somewhere. I wasn't allowed to go up on the hill, but I did, and I might have seen you there. But anyway, she's working for a company that's going to be doing a lot of innovation in medical technology that will help people who have to have transplants and whatever. So there's a lot coming down the line, and I just like to think that, there are a lot of people that are thinking outside the box, because I think there are. Maybe we just
There are.
don't, we don't maybe necessarily run into them in our daily life, or when we watch the news and see what's going on, and this backwards movement that we seem to be, happening out there. I'm not going to go backwards. I'm going to go forwards. But, and someone we're going to be having on later this week is Rianne Wilson. I mean, not Wilson, Rianne Eisler, who you probably know of, right, Kurt? And she's talking about, I'm going to be talking about neuroscience and the effect that has on children and youth in this world with everything that's happening. So I'm sure that's going to be a fascinating conversation. But back to Catherine, what did you do before you rebirthed yourself?
I was in advertising, graphic design. I was an art director for a small design firm. I'm an artist. I went to the High School of Art and Design and Pratt Institute.
Wow.
So my first love was art. But I found the field of advertising was so corrosive that it kind of crushed my spirit, and I had to get out of it. And I started looking for other things to do. And then I spent in the interim a couple of years working at the museum, the Metropolitan Museum. And then out of that, I started working with the radio station and started studying energy. So, in energy training, it's more of an apprenticeship kind of program. You study with experts or masters in the field, and then you gradually develop your own skill set. So that's the path I followed.
Right.
Larry Coppold. Larry Coppold was very much into advertising, obviously, because he brought billions of dollars into companies and so on, like sadly McDonald's and others. But now he's in the Climate Underground. He's he's an amazing soul. I don't know if you've ever heard of Larry Coppold, but
I haven't, but I'll look into it. And I think that that's wonderful. Sadly, I'm not one of those advertising people that had all that cash.
Yeah.
So my focus has always been more the underdog, people in my family, in my community who wouldn't normally have access to high-tech medicine anyway, and could relate more to some of the cultural things, the indigenous, aboriginal things are more closer to that. And so I have worked, in fact, I worked for 19 years at the Riverside Church, teaching the community, working with the homeless, helping people to change their lives. So I'm really, I think it's important for people who don't normally have access or even encouragement to realize that they can self-empower and
Yes.
heal their own body, that we all have that power within us to transform our lives. So that's been more my focus.
And that takes hope, a sense of hope, and that feeling of hope being recognized and encouraged within the home. My ex-husband was a professional artist, and I never used to think of myself as an artist, but I realized that I am more of an artist, not necessarily in the sense that I could ever consider a degree in visual design or anything like that, but I'm creative in that I like to find ways to do things in a creative way, and repurposing and reusing something. So, that's art, right?
Well, art, from my perspective, is a way of life.
Yeah,
you live your life artistically, and that's part of elevating yourself and your humanity, because everything is art if you look at it.
Exactly.
Everything you see and touch is art. And
That's
our
my
lives
youngest.
in the same
Go
way as art. So yeah, absolutely. I support and understand completely what you're saying.
So I raised my kids to be that way. My oldest son is more artist, as he's always been a map guy. And so now he's a map maker for the Corps of Engineers, and he likes to, that takes some artists, not just all science and computer stuff, and everything. And so he's already in that way. And my youngest is he's just arts everywhere, as you said, and he enjoys doing outdoor education art, and that's very, very, very cool. I really like that they're both that way. And he's also quite musical. Somehow he knows how to sing. I'm terrible, but
Beautiful thing is everybody, if anybody's ever been an educator, we realize that everybody has a different gift.
exactly.
And all a real educator does, unlike what too much of education has been trained to do, is to be able to bring forth that gift and let it flower, fuel it all the different ways that it can be fueled, from just a simple inspiration for a person to do it. And a
Exactly.
simple example, I was teaching in 1969 in East Los Angeles, and there was a boy that he was not paying attention in history class. And I said, well, what do you love doing? He says, I love my art. And I said, okay, we're studying Spain right now. Would you please investigate your favorite artist of this time and maybe even paint him, but find out about what prompted his painting to be the way it was because of that time period. He painted El Greco. El Greco is called Domenico Theotocopoli. He was, I believe, the first modern artist. And I asked him to give a presentation to show his art and to talk about this in front of the class. And he did that with so much skill because this is what he loved. And this is what any educator does, is to be able to bring forth that gift, just like your parents bring forth your gift as you're growing up, as you're being nurtured in that wonderful family life. And sadly, some people don't have that kind of a family life. And that's why I recommend a book called Nurturing with Love and Wisdom, Disciplining with Peace and Respect. The subtitle is Mindful Parenting. It would have been a bestseller if it was Mindful Parenting and then the subtitle. But it's still one of the best parenting books ever. And it uses the Living Values Education program. So we are those prompters. Sometimes I call myself a cattle prodder. And I try to prod people to be able to get more of their juice. Like when I do peak performance trainings, we've had athletes that were normal state swimmers in Maharashtra in India go over to the English Channel and swim the English Channel faster than any other Asian. Now, this is a skinny little Indian guy. His name is Bijoy Jain. A month or so later after this workshop, he goes over and swims this. He was only a state quality swimmer in India. Yet he does it. Now he's a famous architect. Why? He used what he learned in channeling his fullness, like even the nutrition, because we teach about nutrition for peak performance. Your endurance and strength can go up 50% with properly supplemented diet. This was research at the Olympic Scientific Congress that was presented there by the keynote speaker in nutrition in 1984. I was giving my presentation on meditation and the ultimate performance in sports, because meditation is the state of mind that we get into, sometimes spontaneously, and we get into that flow, as some people call it, or into the zone. And that's when that peak performance happened. It's like when a woman sees their child pinned underneath the car. Their mind stops, some of the women's minds, not all of them. And they pick up the the car, and pull the child from underneath it. How the F do they do that?
Adrenaline.
It's not adrenaline. It's way
not?
not even close. Adrenaline does not come close. There's a man, he's the only picture in Winning Ways for Living. The only photograph in that book is a picture of Sri Chinmoy. He's lifting over 7,000 pounds off a standard with one arm. He gets it about this high off the standard, about 1.5 inches, 3 inches off the standard. He did it 3 out of 5 times after midnight. Sri Chinmoy was over 60 years old when he did that. He did it in front of like 40 people. The photograph shows it's that high off the standard. There's nothing that this body cannot do. I have a free PDF that people can write to the successsystemsinternational.net. They can write through that and ask for making miracles. How do you make miracles? Well, you got to give it a go. If you don't give it a go, you get nothing, honey. There was a guy named JC, Jesus Christ, right? This dude thanked the Father for having healed people, like as if the dude did it instead of him, right? So he thanks God for having healed this person. I took that script. I'm down playing beach ball in South Africa, and I love beach volleyball. One guy spikes the ball. So great. But he comes down and you hear this horrible sound. It's a big pop. He blew his knee out. Beach volleyball, you drag the person off the court so everybody can play, and you deal with them. So I drag him off the court and I say, would you mind if I can see if I can help you? And he says, what are you going to do? I said, well, let's just do this. Let's calm down. Let's focus on your breathing. And I said, do you mind if I put my hands on your knee? This is the first time I ever tried it. I put my hands on his knee. It's also called touch therapy in medicine.
Reiki?
No, I don't know Reiki, but I basically did this particular experiment, so to speak. And I know about touch therapy, which is just the human touch when you care about a person. Helps heal and calm a person down. I also knew sports psychology. So I gave him this breathing practice. I guided him through a visualization. You're breathing in through your nose and it goes to the lower lobes of your lungs and so on and so forth. And oxygen goes to the most needed places. Your brain already knows it. You don't have to think about it. And 45 minutes of describing this visualization and breathing and so on, and me periodically thanking God for having healed him. In my mind, I didn't say it out loud. Just in my mind, I thank God for having healed him. He got up and walked away. I didn't even know his name.
Wow.
Years later, I was leading a scout pack backpacking, and one boy walks up with a big staff because he had twisted his ankle so badly. I tried it again. Guess what? It worked again. He walked away without the staff. If this guy can do it, what can't you do? Another example just from this life, my twin, I have an identical twin brother. At the age of 17 and a half, we started training with the world record holders and swimmers in a club team. We had been from a small little park team. We're coming back from a workout and it's raining. My brother's driving. We start to skid on the freeway. We're going about 65 miles an hour. He starts to fishtail, right? Starts to. I calmly said, slow down. Well, he being the smart brother, he was the better grades, that is, put his foot on the brakes. So instead of doing that, we did a donut. We're going across 4 lanes of traffic, and I'm saying unkind words to my brother. Cars are coming and I'm trying to say, go this way or whatever.
Watch
And
out.
we totaled the car, got out, the tow truck guy comes and he says, can you guys pick up the car? And I said, sure. And I looked at my brother and he's in shock. I picked up the car, the guy put the tires underneath and drove us away. How did a 17 and a half year old, 6 foot tall, 150 pound person who just had an hour and a half workout with world record holders in swimming be able to do that kind of thing? Again, the mind shut off. What needed to happen is the juices flowed, the energy flowed, unimpeded. That's why I started teaching meditation and so on, because I did learn from a master. What can't you do? There is nothing that we cannot do on this planet. I have an incredible quote from Rilke that I'd love to be able to share later in the program, because it's what we are. We are the imaginal cells now to be able to transform this planet into thriving. And we are the force. We have the power. The people are the power. We don't have to blame any politician for here, there, or anywhere. We don't have to blame the bad news, the well-conditioned animal news, the fear-mongering news. We don't have to blame anything. We get to focus on what we want, and we get what we want, more likely. Thank you. I pontificated too long. I'm sorry.
Well,
Please,
those are empowering stories. I mean, that's really amazing. Catherine, in your experience as a radio host, have you had people on your show that are like Kurt, that talk about these amazing stories of unhuman, like no, not unhuman like
Yeah, he's talking about human qualities, I'm sure. But I would say no, I haven't, though I have spoken to people who are engaged in helping others, Carolyn Mace, and I've spoken to a lot of healers. What I find the most fun about being with radio is that engagement with the people who listen, the people who are learning from what they're hearing and want to know how to go forth in making these transformations for themselves and in a lot of ways healing themselves. And because I come from, as I was saying, communities that are not well healed, I find that, sometimes you really need to encourage people and to feel good about themselves. Sometimes you need to encourage people to understand and to go through the process of experiencing their own energy and manifesting their own power.
and their own strength, as Kurt was saying, that comes from
Well,
inside.
For me, I think what Kurt is saying is that it's not the mind. To me, it's the mystery at the core of who we are. And sometimes if we can cut out that critical voice, and if we're not worrying about what people think about us, and if we begin to nurture who we are as beings, we can begin to love ourselves and remember that we came into the world as babies, like everyone does, very innocent, very pure. Everyone comes that way. And we can reach back into that pure essence of who we are, even though we're adults, and begin to give space for that in our life. And we can begin to, like with the work that I do, it's a breathing, moving, being alive within your body is a way of igniting that inner power and not comparing to what another person is doing, but finding your own gift, finding your own abilities and allowing it to move at its own pace. Don't give up if it doesn't look like somebody else's success. And I think that that's really an important way to go. And also I think because I come from communities who have real health issues. And I like to talk to people about not having an over reliance on symptomologies, taking drugs, taking medicines that appease the symptoms, but don't change the underlying core of their health, and to help people understand that they can incrementally make real changes that will prolong their life, make them stronger. And when you start taking care of yourself, your emotions come into control, you're less inclined to fall into depressions. So I am about helping people to have their best life. And I'm sure it's the same as what Kurt is talking about. Maybe you won't get to the point of being a Hercules or doing a big feat, but that's a way of showing people that this is possible. And maybe the thing that you're doing might be smaller than the big things that people are doing in the world. But this is what you were given in your life. We all have our own path to follow. And that's what I really advocate, that everybody learns to love their path, whatever that might be, and take inspiration and take encouragement. So many people don't understand that they can be helped. And it seems to me that that's what Kurt is doing. He's putting it out there to help people, to give them steps to take, to give them inspirational stories, to share his own stories. And I think that's how we all can help people around us, to share what we know, what we have, and what we can do with that caring. If you want to put hands-on touch, if you want to share a particular kind of learning, bring your heart to it. It makes all the difference.
Yeah. And Kurt, when I said, I couldn't think of a word, but I said unhuman, because it seems like it's not it seems above human is what I meant.
Natural.
Yeah. And like all of a sudden you have this amazing gift to do it. And that's why it didn't seem so just like average human kind of experience. But Catherine, remember a few years ago, I was trying to get us to do a get to know the team better thing. And I don't remember what the question was. But when you were talking about yourself as a child, you thought that, that you were like already 30 years old as far as maybe your rebirth experience. Because
I didn't experience myself as a child at all. I just thought I was short. Other people.
That's it. You thought you were short.
It didn't occur to me that there was any real difference. And come to find out, I was right.
So
adults around me didn't know a whole lot, and I didn't know a whole lot, but at least I didn't venerate them, and I was able to just follow my own little path.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. We all just know what we know. Like Kurt knows what he knows, and which is amazing, and you know what you know, which is amazing. But to me, it's like the idea of, I don't know, this sounds new agey, but being an old soul, that you just sort of like come with all of this I don't know, for lack of better words, because I'm not so good at finding them today, intrinsic knowledge of just having this awareness, this sense of what you can do, and you just think everybody else can do it too, because you can, and you don't think of it being any great thing or special thing. I have to say, I kind of felt like that too when I was little. It's like, and maybe it was because when I was 5, I already had 3 younger siblings. And so I was like just thrust into that, where I didn't have all this time to be egocentric and, just think about me, serve me. Or who knows what it is. You
make a good point, but you know what also to think about in indigenous cultures, they look to a child to see what their gift is, and then they nurture them along that path. In our culture, we try to sequester what the child brings, quiet them down, shut them up. And
go into the norm here.
So I think culturally we have problems there. And I just want to say, Kurt, you were talking about being a teacher. Because I grew up in what people might look at as a ghetto. Now it's different because there were no drugs. I was born in the 50s. But I have to tell you that teachers, there's like a select few teachers that made all the difference in my life. You know, teachers make a difference, you know, in
Good,
children's
bad, or
lives.
ugly. Good,
Yeah.
bad, or ugly. Yes.
And I would hope that, you know, that there's room for that can be made again, because from my vantage point, a lot of the ways they've changed education and standardized testing, and it goes a lot to kill the soul and spirit of a child. And I think that that has to change. You
Well,
know,
the whole simple thing about our education system is you got to sit down, shut up, and pay attention.
yes,
And for me, I was one of those little kids in the back of the room that was looking out the window because it was much more fascinating and interesting what was happening out there than a lot of times what was happening in here, especially during math class. But we, each of us, like you mentioned, have this special gift that the indigenous people, the people close to nature, they feel what that child is going for in life. That they have as a flow in their life. And we think that we have to flow in this particular pattern because we've got it structured. And it never used to be structured. The original universities, you would pick the person you thought was the best person to teach. The Sorbonne, you would find the person who was the wisest person in what you were interested in, and you would pay that dude to be your teacher. And they would teach you what you had to be able to know in as much of that field as they could offer you. And we think that anybody and everybody can be a teacher if they just satisfy these particular requirements. That doesn't mean their heart is open. That doesn't mean that they care and that they are service-oriented. And this is what Mother Nature does. Mother Nature is all about service for the greater good, is the collaborative force of life. Life breeds life. The only thing that doesn't, and it only thinks about itself, is basically like a cancer cell. And so it affects all these other cells. But again, that's also part of life. When we see it as part of life. If we want to release cancer, we can. When we use all the wisdom of the ages, these things can be released. But very few people are looking to be able to do it in an alternative way, in an out-of-the-box way. We have that system of education, the pontification education, the one that I have written so many books, you can listen to me. Well, I've only written 4 books.
I haven't written any.
Well, guess what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because we touch who we are here to touch. We touch as much as we give. When we give, we are filled. We cannot get emptied. That is not nature. We did a program on biomimicry. I'm one of the founding people of the Peace Lab and the Peacemakers Circles and Network. Those are 2 different groups. One is 2 years old and one is only a few months old. And we develop people into being able to use their gifts to bring peace in everything with peace. And when you get out of that sync, like you feel like you're not feeling so peaceful, you can put your hand up like that and say, for some reason, I don't feel so peaceful. Let me have a moment. Or you can say, what I heard you say didn't quite resonate with me, and I don't feel quite still, or I don't feel I understood you well. And then we can start to be able to understand each other more. Because there's not a soul in the world that we cannot hear. that we cannot care for. When I say I love this president, and he may be the antithesis of how this body thinks and feels, he's an antithesis of it. I see why he is as he is. He has been fed what he's been fed to think the way he is, and he's been gifted what he's been given. And it's like the greatest teacher I ever had, his name is Swami Muktananda. He said, see God in each other and know that God dwells within you as you. What happens when we do that? We're following the golden rule. And we're in heaven. We create heaven by having those two simple chosen thoughts and outlook to life. My salute to everybody is this.
That's one of your
Look through the heart, look through the love. You look through love, and then you zoom love out to the world, but you say zoom peace. Why? Because when you throw love to the world, it brings peace. Love is the same in every single religion. It's the essence of all religions. It's beyond religion. You don't have to believe in any deity. You don't have to believe in anything else. You believe that if it's making life better, it's well worth it.
I think I swear my dog looks at me with love. He just looks up at me and his hair's all over his eyes, and I just know he loves me. And I love him. So,
You struggle with them.
well, he's a rescue dog. When I first got him, he had been so mistreated, not as in not being fed or hit, but just so abandoned. And it just took him the longest time to feel comfortable. And my kids say, I said, well, he's my therapy dog. And they said, Mom, you're his therapy human. Catherine, I know you're very involved in mental health awareness and education. Talk about that.
Well, the work that I do is primarily through Qigong at this point. And Qigong is one of the ancient healing arts of China, very connected to the original Taoist practices, as well as Qigong and all of Chinese philosophy started in shamanism. I really like it because there's this continuous cultivation and development that has lasted through many hundreds of thousands of years. And while other cultures have come and gone, there's been this essence of what's there that we can learn from now. And everything is tied to your energy, your emotions, your thoughts, your state of your health. So I work with people through energy, learning how to do the breathing, the movements, the meditation, and the coordination of all those things that really puts people into a nourishing of the parasympathetic nervous system so that they can get out of that fight or flight and stress state of mind and really can settle into a deeper sense of peace that is actually the natural state of a human being. And I agree with Kurt, when you can really connect to that inner peace, the inner love, when that inner sense of self is self-loving, it's not hard to emanate that love beyond you, into your environment, into your world, into your family. But from my vantage point, it really does start with healing the wounds that we're holding on to, because those psychological, emotional wounds become embedded into our physiology. And we have to work to move that stuck energy so that we can begin to replenish ourselves and grow into our fullest potential. So that I use Qigong as the mechanism for that. And, you know, I do energy healing, I do Reiki, and I've also studied the Sandlin technique, which is Cherokee. And I work with Aztec healing, and the obsidian mirror. So I move through cultures. You know, I've studied with Dogon people. So I like to look at what's common in all cultures and bring that wisdom forward to work with people. So I tend to be a little bit of a throwback. I have a lot of respect for the ancients and for those ancient civilizations that actually functioned really well for hundreds of thousands of years until it didn't. But in the meantime, the wisdom that came through and is still there is, to me, most valuable and what I resonate with. So rather than I don't talk to people as much as I'm breathing with them, moving with them, teaching them how to move the energy through their body, how to release stuck energy. So it's more of a individualized self-healing process that I share with people.
Years ago, I suffered a tragedy. I was pregnant with twins. One died in utero, and the other was born with profound disabilities. Fortunately, I was able to get therapy, and their techniques that I still use today. One that I remember I was just so devastated. It was hard to think that anything could help. But the doctor said, no, you got to do this. This is what you got to do twice a day. And, I listened to a relaxation tape and everything. And I was taught how, and I still do this, cleanse my aura. And it's amazing how it really does work. Later on, I was attuned to Reiki because I was working, this was through the Cleveland Clinic, because I was working with children in a therapy center that we worked with children who had autism and other related disorders. And it was just really part of just getting into the idea. I mean, with the Reiki, it was more of a sense of just really being able to feel the energy and seeing things through their eyes. I really feel like I was able to have that sense because I was so connected on an energy level. And Catherine, I wondered if you have success stories like Kurt shared with his ability to use his thought energy. Do you have success stories with your Qigong and everything that you've tried?
I think that I do. I don't work too much with thought energy. I do a lot of hands-on. And so what happens is when you're working with the energies, you first connect into the cosmic and the earth, and you bring reinforcements, and you allow that energy to flow into a person's body through you. So you become an instrument. And then as the energy flows into the person's body, they find that they have more resources, so that they have a more invigorated immune system.
And if we could see it, like we could see the colors happening in between.
They'll come up with, they'll start being more energetic. They'll start feeling more encouraged.
More relaxed.
I mean, I would say that I have experienced miracles with people.
Yes.
But I don't put it out there because in a sense, it's the person who's creating their own miracle.
And it's almost kind of like a private thing.
Yeah, and I like to assist people to find their strength and their power so they can create their own miracles. I don't take claim for it.
Were you able to do that with your mom?
No, because it was my mother's death that was my catalyst. I didn't know what to do.
But did you have I have this feeling you had a sense of some sort of energy between you and her.
We had a very close relationship, and one of the reasons I started so late is because I was her caretaker. I
Mhm,
started taking care of her when I was 9.
mm.
I took care of her until I was in my 30s, along with my 3 brothers. So I kind of had a life on pause, but at the same time, there was a mastery in what I was doing. And my mother was spiritual, so my connection was very spiritual.
Mhm,
And I was with her when she passed away,
mm.
and I was holding her hand and looking into her eyes. And she was talking to me, and I could see her slipping away. But when she left, I was so connected that I felt myself fall into her eyes.
Mm.
Ended up in a space that was, I guess you would say, a near-death experience, but from a different viewpoint. And that experience really confirmed for me how expansive we are as beings, and how
And that
much
there's something more.
love there is in the universe, because I, for a little while, experienced that. And then what happened is we were interrupted by the medical crew,
Mm.
and I left. But what I began to realize is that she actually chose to leave her body, and we cohabitated for about 3 hours. So it was a miraculous experience for me to have had that, because I had no more questions, and I could just go on this path and see how far I could go.
That's
And
that's so-
what I
that's
tried
really
to-
beautiful, and I mean it's a life affirming experience, and not all of us have that. I have had something similar, so it's not the same, but it's something I can
And
understand.
I think if we look for it, we all have something.
Yeah,
And you should never question what your gift is, because you have this gift of Reiki,
mhm.
you have this connection with your animals, but you're like this with people too. You know, it's like you're like an elder in the whole we community, and you move from place to place, and you keep things going, and you juggle things around. So your gift is something that I would love for you to appreciate.
Well,
it's-
I'm learning that. I'm learning that,
Yeah,
Catherine.
the same is
And
true for Angel, who's helping
yes,
us here. You know, it's like what we're doing in the world matters. It may not be perfect, but it saves lives, and it matters just by your presence and your energies.
oh, Catherine, thank you so much. As I've been listening to you talk, I just feel like we've let a lot of things go by and fall down. And I assure you, it's not my wish. It's just so hard to keep up with everything. And
Yeah, I
I'm
think
so glad you're here today. And
it's
really,
like that for all of us. And what we can do is just leave a little spaciousness for that, knowing that it's going to happen. Oh, well, we trip.
it's gonna happen. It's
Yeah,
gonna happen.
it's not a big deal if we
No.
make space for it.
And
And
Well-
Jenna, you are so cuddly. Your energy is like I mentioned about your animal, is that you love cuddling, and that's what you are. You're just a ball of love. It's so beautiful. You can feel it across these ethers.
Oh, I'm gonna start crying because I'm a crier, and that's what. Just earlier today, I'm meeting this person in Sri Lanka, and
you're
I-
traveling to Sri Lanka and just to
and we had this great connection, and now he's going to be able to really come into the coordinating the environment campaign, because Sue's doing her climate collaboratory, which is a whole big thing just right on its own. And I'm just like, this is so exciting, to meet people like that and be able to make that connection with them. And I tell them, I just live in rural Ohio. There are cows and chickens and horse and geese. The closest gas station is 10 miles away. And,
I promise you, there are hundreds of thousands of people that are jealous of you right now, because we're stuck in cities with a bunch of pollution and a lot of noise. So Be grateful.
I-
for what you
I
have.
love it. I live near a field and I've just created this zen out there, because I can just go out there and look at the weeds and have fun.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's all good. It's all good. And, also, just having this program and bringing Kurt and having him be able to encourage people is like so different than what people have on TV and radio.
yes.
Media is just encouraging toxic behavior, toxic thinking, and keeping folks at a stress level that is detrimental to their health. So
Mhm.
we need this kind of expression and media and sharing, because just like we're feeling your cuddly, that energy is going out into the world. So it matters what we do, even though it doesn't seem like it does, it
Yeah.
does. Energetically, especially, it makes a difference. It's like you only need a pinch of salt. You don't need to put the whole bottle in there. And that's what good energy is like.
Yeah. And it's contagious and infectious. Contagious in an infectiously good way.
Exactly.
Well, sadly, we're coming to the end of our hour, so I want to give you both a chance to say anything else that you'd like to say about how wonderful you are, and, and all the wonderful work that you do before we end.
Yeah, and Kurt, tell us about your books. What are at least their names?
Oh, basically, it's a series called The Winning Ways for Living. And,
Oh,
Uh,
you have to put it in front of your face. We can't see. Oh, there. Yeah. Okay.
okay, and it's basically peak performance practices. I'm behind it, so I don't know if you can see it or not.
I see it. No, I don't see it. Maybe Catherine does.
We got glimpses.
There we go. We saw a brief incident. Well, we'll have to keep up with all this and
But
promote.
I'm
talking
not
about what-
promoting. The thing is, I'm not promoting the book. The thing that I'm promoting is people being who they really are, and to be able to just follow their heart and soul's guidance. And when we do that, we are the gift of humanity. There's a wonderful lady. Her name is Carolyn Baumgardner, and Carolyn has a saying that is, as I am the implement I am, the I am can be implemented. Now that sounds very confusing in a way, because it's very, in a way, let's say, pithy. It's very succinct, but it's so powerful. It's like saying, I am that. Well, what is that? And you get to figure it out. It's like a Zen koan. And when we figure that out, we get to manifest that beauty that God put onto the planet. This unique beauty that we are. This cuddly person here, and this just vivacious lady here, and so on. I mean, can you imagine a person coming from the barrios or ghettos of wherever you are, to be able to grow to be such a great being? To be able to change because of the gift of that great mother, that mother's love that was gifted to Catherine. And she brought it forth. She's an ancestor of future generations because of her gifts to this generation. The future generations can be the perfect society. Without it starting here and now, it won't be so. Thank you. I love you. Be well and be happy.
Yeah, I just want to let people know that you can find me on the radio, 99.5 FM, WBAI.org, Friday mornings at 11 a.m. for Heart of Mind. The best website is qigongonline.net, QIGONGONLINE.net, and you can branch out from there. And I teach Qigong classes 3 or 4 times a week, so there's always an opportunity to connect and breathe.
And she's a wonderful interviewer too, because I've been on with some of my volunteers. She's just you're an expert on that. You're just the epitome of the best interviewer. You're great.
Thank you.
Well, anyway, this has been
Have
a
to have Kurt on.
Anytime.
yes, yes.
To serve, just like everybody else. I'm here to serve, and if we can do it at any time, I'll do it.
Very good.
Thank you, thank you. It's been a truly inspiring discussion. Thank you both for being a part of 11 Days of Global Unity 22. Here's where we hold up our 3 fingers. Both of you, it's not the Girl Scout promise, 3 fingers. It's all about we go from a me society to a we society. So together we can create a world that works for all. Go to we.net to get involved. Much love to you both. This has been so much fun. Thank you.
Boom, peace.
Go in peace.
We the world.